Good morning everyone, welcome to another episode of Bareham Engines. Right, so on a bit more of a positive note than the last video, going to get involved in some technical stuff here in the workshop. So first thing I've got on the go this morning is the V8 stuff for the TVR. So we've had the new clutch wherever it is. So we've got all the bits over there that we've got to go through. So we've had the new clutch from CG Motorsport, and we have got to get this all sent off to be balanced, because as you know, at the moment, we can't balance the V8s. So what am I doing here? First of all, I've unwrapped all the pistons. We've done a dummy check on the piston heights compared to the old ones, because obviously we haven't bought it yet. And we haven't actually got to take anything off these, so that's them fine. We're going to have to weigh them all and get them all into spec of each other. Obviously, if we need to remove any material, what I normally do first of all is take it out of the back of the piston. So what we do is we weigh it with, obviously there's no circlips in these because it's a shrink fit onto the conrod. So we just got to weigh it with the rings, the pin and the pistons. And then we've got the conrods over here. So conrods, I've torqued up to spec, 35 foot-pounds apparently on these, and I'm just checking the housings. So what I've done is I've done my usual, I've set our bore gauge to top limit, so top limit being the slackest, so the biggest size. So if I measure this first one, they're all pretty consistent, but you can see that is about, it's getting on half a thousand, so that's towards bottom limit, so it's within spec. Oh, hang on a minute. And if we go side to side here, you can see that that is about half a thou tight on side to side, and it is on all of them. So that there is getting on a thou tight, that is, and about half a thou tight up there. So we'll go through them all. I have sort of measured them all roughly, but they're all pretty tight. So what I'm going to do is take all these out to pretty much top limit. So, which is a good thing, because as I say, they're very slightly, some of them are very, very slightly oval. Probably the worst is getting on half a thou oval, but that just allows us to true them up and take it out to top limit, which is absolutely perfect. So what we'll do is we'll hone these out. And what I've got to do is get these done, get the pistons done, and then send off an entire piston assembly, just one rod, one piston, pin and rings, etc. One set of crank bearings and the crankshaft and the flywheel, clutch, all the relevant bits, and they can get that balanced up for us. So the Rover guys, a little bit of an update on the Rover. We have ordered all the bits, the rings, all the relevant bits, new set of conrod bearings, etc. So as soon as those bits arrive, John's going to crack on with that. We're just going to strip the head out anyway, although we did strip it out before. Obviously the guides have been done, but we just want to make sure that everything's okay in there. We may as well while it's off. And then we're just going to sort of deglaze the bores, hopefully stick the hone down and maybe take a little bit of material out there. Obviously we're not going to take the crank out, so we're going to tape all those journals up, etc. And then, yeah, like I say, once those bits arrive, we can get that done for Ken and get it out the door, get it back to him. Right guys, so I've sized all the rods. They're all perfect now. We've got to balance those end for end yet, but I've just weighed all the pistons with the pins, and these are the weights in grams of all of them. So first thing I noticed is from the heaviest to the lightest is actually 10 grams, or very slightly over 10 grams, 10.1 grams. But looking, if I just look at the writing on there and then the writing on here, it looks like we've got a couple of different, or at least different batches of piston here. Those two there look to be different to the others, and you notice that this one here is slightly heavier than that, but it's still about 9 grams less. So unfortunately, not a lot we can do about that. It's very similar visually. If you have a look all over it, it looks exactly the same, but obviously there's just a bit more casting weight in the rest of them. So we've got to take all these down to that. So what I do is I start off with the heaviest, We're going to take 10 grams off that from the base. So we'll go from the base there. You see we've got plenty of meat in there anyway to do it. But if we take the weight off the heaviest first to the lightest, then we get a good indication of how much material we've got to take out. It sort of gives us an indication of what to take out the rest of them. So I'll start with that one, guys, and then go see what we got. So guys, I've done 3 pistons already, and this is the 4th one I'm doing now. This one was about 8 grams out, and what I've discovered is if I just take that pin off the one I haven't done yet, you can see the base here. You've got some material in here, which is a bit of a lug there, which goes down to this base here, which is, to be honest, it's safe to take a bit off here because it's nowhere near the small end pin. And you can see on here what I've done is I've turned that sort of lug out down to the face there, and that has removed about 6 or 7 grams so far. So just a little bit more to go on that one, and he's done. But these ones, again, see that one there, not quite turned down to the base, just sort of a little bit. So yeah, I'm getting there, guys. Right, the reason for today's thumbnail and title, guys, and it is literally since I've been sitting here, I've just thought I'm gonna have to do this. A guy's just walked in here, and we've had this quite a lot in the past. He's walked in here with 2 hubs off something rusty and horrible, and he said, "Is there any chance of you sandblasting these?" I said, "No, because we don't do sandblasting." He said, "Oh, well, you used to." I said, "Well, we do. We've got a vapor blaster now, and we've also got the bead blaster, but it uses a fine glass bead." And I said, 2 things. One, it's not very good on heavy rust. I said, if we ever have any heavy rusted blocks or anything like that, we go at it with a wire brush. If it's too bad, first of all, if it's too bad for that, then we have to get it sandblasted. There's a chap down in Bideford that does it for us, and he'll do it mobile as well. "Oh, well, I'm sure I bought stuff in here before." And I said, "Well, it's certainly not going to have been since we've took over, John and I, and that's been like 7 odd years. But unfortunately, it's not worth us doing it because, as I say, one, the glass bead, and especially the vapor blaster, it just probably ain't going to get it off." And I said, secondly, it's not worth us doing it. I said, because you stick some rusty in that bead blast cabinet, and I said, as soon as it touches the rust, boof, you can't see in the cabinet, you've got to clean the bloody thing out. So I said, "I'm ever so sorry, but it's just not worth us doing it." He was not happy. He said, "Well, I've been coming in here for 25 years. And I said, "Well, I've been here for 21 years and I don't ever remember seeing you. So whether it's a coincidence that you've just dealt with John when I haven't been here on the rare occasion, maybe." I said, "But we'll do anything that you want doing that we do, but we don't do that. Whether we used to do it, we just don't do it anymore. So I am ever so sorry, but I can put you onto this guy." He didn't want to know who the guy was. He was peed right off that I wouldn't do this thing. I have been coming here for 20 odd years, and I've been a good customer. We used to be a very good customer. I said, "Well, I'm sure you have, but that's completely irrelevant. I mean, coming in with them hubs or coming in with something we don't do is the same as coming in asking for your car to be painted. We don't do it, so we ain't doing it. Simple." So, yeah, it just, as I say, we've had quite a lot of people come in here, want stuff doing that we don't do anymore. I mean, bear in mind, years ago, we did used to be Barham Engineering. So we would get stuff in, although we were predominantly an engine reconditioners, we would get stuff in here that was engineering jobs because we were called Barham Engineering. Most of the time they were shitty little jobs that, can you just jobs, or can you just make me this? When you give them a bill for 40 quid plus the VAT, they turn around and say, "Well, I could have bought a new one for a £5." Just that's one of the reasons we changed the name from engineering to engines, because it sort of gives people the wrong impression. But yeah, I've had to be moved to the office, guys. Isaac's just blasting something in there. I couldn't hear myself think. But yeah, strange one. Some people are a bit strange. It's a little bit like the people that come in here. want it done right away. We don't mind for garages so much that we deal with all the time because we understand the cars on the ramp. But when sort of general punters come in, drop a head off, they don't seem to realise that we've got other stuff to do. And when we turn around and say, we'll probably get to it sometime tomorrow or maybe the day after, they're pretty put out that we don't do it right away. But there we go. Just had a little rant, guys. So just remember, if we don't do it, we don't do it. And if we say that we're not going to do it right away, it's because we've got other stuff to do. It's the next day today. It's Wednesday. It's, I suppose by the time you're watching this video, it's today. And it's got mental in here. Right, so first thing we're doing, let's have a little recap on what's happening here. So this is the little A series. I think that's the Morris block that is all bored. And that is ready for a wash, just letting that drain. Isaac has been pressure testing some Cummins heads, I believe. I think they're Cummins, to be honest with you. These sort of single individual heads, 6-cylinder, obviously with individual heads. So he's pressure testing each one of those and facing them. Obviously being individual heads, to make sure that the rocker side is level, you've got to take the same off each one. And you can see over here that he's been facing them, and I think they've cleaned up nicely at 5 thou each one, so that's ideal. Obviously with these gaskets, very rarely do they crack, but we have to pressure test them, being a diesel, and it's usually just the gasket goes, but the heads, because obviously they're a small individual head, they don't tend to warp that bad. So a nice 5 thou clean up and they're ready to go back on. I'm over here reboring a 1600 crossflow block. This has got to go to +20. We're not building this engine, it's just machining for the customer. And we've got some JP pistons here at +20. So that's what I'm doing over there. We had another engine come in yesterday from my friend Tom Garness. And the block is outside. I'll just show you what's going on here. Now, apparently, here is the block and here is the cylinder head. Now, this is an Amarok, it's a 2-litre diesel, and apparently this had an oil issue, I believe that the oil light came on or something and it stopped, so they've sort of stripped it out, and apparently, weirdly, it has seized up a piston, good and proper, as you can see there. I've wiggled the pistons about and it seems like 2 or 3 of the small ends are worn. Now these small ends, if you can see, they're the tapered type. So it looks like we may have to find, if we can't get small end bushes, we may have to get some rods. Sometimes these rods are so cheap it's not worth even bothering replacing the small ends, because obviously being a tapered one, it's not just a case of fitting it and reaming it, we've got to machine the sides as well. So yeah, we need a set of pistons. The block's got to be bored to 0.5. There doesn't seem to be much damage to the block. That should clean at 0.5 easily. So yeah, as I say, the oil light come on, so whether it was a spray jet issue or something like that, obviously an oil cooling issue that made the piston seize like that, I do not know. But we've got to supply the bits. The crank looks great. John's just going to put it up in the crank grinder and check it, make sure it's straight and obviously within size. And the head's fairly grotty, so we've got to give that a good clean. Take it to bits, make sure it's all clean and what have you, and then and the valves are seating okay, and give that a skim, and then order the bits for Tom. So what we've got here, we've got a couple of engines which are going out. That one there is for, that's the Focus Mark III RS that's going for Kyle. I think he paid yesterday for that, and he's going to get that one collected because he's got his own courier service. We've got the Pinto down there, which the customer's going to come in any time now to sort of pay and take that one away. And down here, we've got another little parcel to go out. Now, what this one is the Cosworth 205 block for the normally aspirated build we're doing. And the reason it's palleted up, guys, is because, and you're probably wondering why I haven't done much to this engine for a while anyway. So not just have we got no room, we've obviously got all the bits, everything's ready to sort of go with this. Obviously we've got the clutch, we've just got to balance the crank assembly, I think, and the block was all pretty much prepped. Now, I did put the ductile iron liners in the block, so we've done quite extensive work to it, but being a 205 block, we can't long stud it. So the problem is, and I can't show you now because we've wrapped it up, but these Cosworth blocks, being the 200 and the 205 block, they are renowned for cracking between the water jacket into one of the bolt holes. Now, fortunately, this one hasn't cracked all the way, but it has once we fitted the liners and ground the top, you can see a very, very fine sort of 2mm crack that's beginning to come from the bolt hole into the water jacket. So what we're going to do is send that to a company called Shorelock, and Shorelock are going to cold stitch that. So the reason we're not going to get it welded is obviously to weld cast iron successfully, you've got to put it in a furnace, heat it up properly. We don't know how that's going to affect the liners. So we're going to go for the cold stitch option, and what the cold stitches are is almost, you drill and tap it, and they're almost like I suppose they look a little bit like a grub screw, but the thread is designed so that when you wind it in, it sort of pulls the material it's winding into itself. It's almost like a hook thread. So we can then put those in with some sealer, etc., or some Loctite, make sure that there's no water going to go into the thread. Yeah, we've done it plenty of times, guys. You guys have probably heard of cold stitching, where a lot of the time you use it for things like frost damage on blocks where it's cracked the outside of the block. You cold stitch it, you overlap the stitches, and that pulls that crack together. You put it in with some sealant, etc., and that stops it from leaking. So there's no reason why this shouldn't be successful. So yeah, that's what's happening with the normally aspirated Cosy build, guys. As soon as that one is back, we can get that one built. Right, that's it for another video, guys. Until Friday, you have a great evening, and we'll see you then. Take care.